Welcome to Take a Side, the sports talk show that lets you, the viewer, pick our winner. Last week, true hotel guru Bob Roush took home the crown atop Sided's leaderboard, and as of this morning, Bob is in the lead once again. Be sure to get on Sided.co and put up your own arguments for the chance to dethrone Bob atop the leaderboard and take home a $25 Amazon gift card. We've got a great show for you today with the NHL and NBA playoffs heating up and the MLB postseason nearing. We've got you covered with the hottest debates of the week. Joining us by Zoom for our first debate is Jack McGar and Marina Saber. With the NFL season set to kick off later this week, the NFL will include 2 additional teams to the playoffs for a total of 14. Given the additional 2 playoff teams, Jack, who do you think is being slept on in this year's playoff race?
Well, first off, I don't think they're really being slept on all that much, but I think one team that I think is going to make the wild card spot is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know, first off, the team that'll beat them in the division is the Baltimore Ravens, of course. I don't think anyone really sees them being out of first place this season, but I think the Steelers, with a healthy roster, could really be a legitimate playoff contender once they hit that wild card spot. I think this team will go as far as Big Ben will take them. He had a significant injury last year and missed a lot of the season and wasn't at full strength, so the team really wasn't at their best. But their defense is really scary, and I think a team with that good of a defense can go really far in the playoffs, no matter what their spot is in the playoffs. I mean, their defense with Mika Fitzpatrick, T.J. Watt, Cameron Hayward just got signed the other day. I mean, that you're not really going to have a good, no matter how good your offense is, you're not getting past that defense. So I think the Pittsburgh Steelers could really be a legitimate Super Bowl contender, no matter if they're first in the division or a wild card spot this season.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the Steelers are a playoff team, but if we're talking about sleeper picks, I wouldn't consider the Steelers to be a sleeper team at all. Most projections that I've seen have them going around 11-5, and really the only team that they have to compete with in their division again is the Ravens. But kind of to touch on all of the things that you said, if I were to present a case why maybe they might have more trouble than they think, it would focus on offense because their defense is going to be, like you said, like insane this year, headlined by a top edge rusher and a top safety. So, like you said, they're coming off a season where Big Ben was gone. Juju didn't really do anything. And in my opinion, he's just been a little bit overrated in general because the only season he put up really good numbers, he was drawing secondhand coverage because AB was taking that primary corner. So he's, for me, doesn't seem as special as people seem to talk about him being. But again, despite all of that being said, I do think they've still got a playoff team. And if you're talking about sleeper picks, I just don't think they really fit that narrative. But for me, that team would be the Arizona Cardinals, which are a true sleeper pick. But I stand by it. Even after the offseason they had, they're still a predicted last place team in the NFC West because that's just how good the division is with the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Rams. But I think that they could really step up and surprise all of us. I mean, last year they finished 5-10-1 with rookie quarterback Kyler Murray, and 5 of those 10 losses were by only 1 possession. And their first game of the season was that massive fourth quarter comeback versus Detroit that resulted in a tie. So if they can get good enough to turn those games that were almost wins into real wins this season, which I think they can because their team is going to be astronomically better this year than it was last season, that's an 11-win season, which could put them in the playoffs. And again, they're dealing with a better team themselves and an even weaker Rams squad in their division. So I think that's a team that they could potentially leapfrog in the West if we're talking about standings, not expecting them to uproot San Francisco or Seattle. But the Rams, I think they could definitely maybe compete with a little bit. And you can't talk about the pieces that the Cardinals have without first talking about Kyler Murray. I mean, he's coming off a season that was far from perfect. He was running for his life practically every single play. He held the ball too long, just really not perfect by any means, but he still won Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's still surprisingly one of the most accurate deep ball passers in the league. And now that they have D-Hop, who's at the very least a consensus top 3 receiver in the league and a guy who can really go up and get those contested passes, I think that'll be an incredible matchup. And now that they have a top wideout in Hopkins, he can draw that primary coverage, freeing up Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk to still make some plays happen if Hopkins stays locked up. In the backfield, they'll have a full year of Kenyon Drake, who put up incredible numbers with the team last year. Chase Edmonds is coming off of a pretty solid year last year for a second or third string running back. And they've got a great offense just in general for Cliff Kingsbury to work with. So I think the difference between them now winning 7 or 8 games on the year or making that playoff spot now that the format's expanded to include 2 teams is their defense, which Steve Keim spent the whole offseason really trying to lock up. Chandler Jones and Budda Baker need to have another locked in year. Chandler Jones is a phenomenal edge rusher. Patrick Peterson needs to get back where he used to be coverage wise. And now that they've brought in Isaiah Simmons to be that really versatile go-to, because he's technically a linebacker, but if you ask him what position he plays, he'll just say defense. That's a guy that I'm really looking for the Cardinals need to turn to this year also. So again, just a great team that they've assembled. And if we're talking about sleeper picks, someone who can really come in, uproot what everyone thought, I think the Cardinals can do that if they don't let the buzz about their offseason get to their head and inhibit their performance.
For sure, I agree with you. I think the Cardinals are more of a sleeper pick, I think, than the Steelers are. I know a lot of people do believe that the Steelers are a playoff team. Me personally, I think they are a sleeper team this year because I know the Ravens are for sure number 1 in their division. I don't think the Steelers are going to have any way to beat them. I mean, they play them twice this season. I think they're going to lose both of those games, honestly. But I do think I agree. The Arizona Cardinals are a really good sleeper pick as well. Kyler Murray is going to take that team really far, no matter if they're third in the division even. I think that'll be a good enough for a wild card spot. But I think the Steelers as a wild card spot, which they will be, could really be a legitimate Super Bowl contender with, again, top 3 defense. And I mean, again, if Big Ben is healthy, that team will go really far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, only time will tell, and both, I think, great teams in their own right, in their own regard. I'm excited to finally get to see them play, and I think Kyler Murray will hopefully lead the Cardinals to playoffs and possibly even beyond. So we're going to throw it back over to Jacob. That is all the time we have. Thanks for sticking with us.
Well, we'll be heading to commercial, and when we come back, we'll have Nick Sola for our lightning round.
First, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
For students searching for a way to stay active in an outdoorsy way, the City of Lawrence has bike trails running in every direction, and with the new bike share program, we can stay in shape as we tour the sights of our beautiful city. Clinton Lake is only a short 30-minute bike ride away from Daisy Hill and has the most incredible sunset location in all of Lawrence. Walking campus may give you the KU calves, but biking can give you the KU thighs. Bike Lawrence today.
Welcome back to our lightning round. Today I'm here with Nick Sola, and for those of you who don't know how this works, I'm going to put time on the clock, and Nick will answer as many sided questions as possible in the allotted time. Nick, are you ready to get started?
Yes.
So first off, who is your pick to win the NHL Eastern Conference Finals? The Vegas Golden Knights or the Dallas Stars?
I gotta go with the Vegas Golden Knights. I just think they've been there and they have a little more of that experience. And I just think they've got to be the favorite here.
And who is your pick for the Western Conference Finals in the NHL?
I gotta go with the Bay Lightning. Same thing. They've just proven to play at the higher level for a long amount of time, and I think they have no problem handling the Islanders in that series. So, but also an interesting one.
And in the MLB, the Padres won again. Are the San Diego Padres a championship contending team?
Oh, absolutely. I think they made a huge push during the deadline. You could tell that they're in a win now mode. They already had low talent with Fernando Tatis and Hosmer and Manny and all that. But adding the arms of Clevenger and Trevor Rosenthal in the bullpen, along with Austin Nola at catcher, I think they're just loading their team up to try to contend with teams like the Dodgers and Yankees. So, absolutely.
Next up, the MLB has been trying out a new extra innings rule where teams start with a runner on second base. Would you like to see this rule in future seasons?
Yeah, I think baseball has been it's a hard game to try to speed up because it's just the way it's been played. With it being a longer game and all that, they already tried speeding up the pitch clock, like in between pitches and all that. That hasn't really worked. I think they could keep it. I don't necessarily like the 0 outs because it's basically an automatic runner on third with 1 out, the way they've been doing it. But you could see a possibility of the rule where there's 1 out. But overall, I'm fine with baseball staying the same as it always was.
In the NFL, which sophomore quarterback do you think will struggle most in year 2? Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins, Kyler Murray, or Drew Lock?
I'm gonna have to say Dwayne Haskins on that one. I just don't think or should I say Washington Football Club, I don't think they have the star power or the firepower that the Cardinals have with D Hop, and the Broncos. Drew Lock is an exciting quarterback, but they also have more weapons. I just don't think Washington. I don't think he has the same threats from the receiving end and as running back.
Now, with the Lakers tied 1-1 with the Houston Rockets, how confident are you that the Lakers are going to win this series and move on to the conference final?
I'm pretty confident. They've been surprisingly well so far, especially from the defensive end of PJ Tucker, able to hold his own against the likes of Anthony Davis. But they have LeBron James along with Anthony Davis. I don't think that loses. I can see them going all the way to the finals, but the Rockets have been very well.
Well, that's all the time we have for the lightning round. Nick, thank you for joining us. When we come back, we'll have Mac McElroy and Jerome Sweeney talking NBA playoff basketball.
From adversity, we rose. We made history and became pioneers, voyagers, champions, Jayhawks. And when our chant rises, haunting and hallowed, Jayhawks are telling the world what's near. Victory.
Have a nice day. You too. Have a great day. Thanks. You too.
Make someone's day. Pay it forward.
You may not hear it at first, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
Welcome back. For our feature debate, I'm joined by Max McElroy and Jerome Sweeney. With the NBA playoffs in full swing, the two LA teams, the Lakers and the Clippers, have emerged as favorites in the West. The top-seeded Lakers are tied 1-1 in a series with the Houston Rockets following a 117-109 win on Sunday. The number 2-seeded LA Clippers have won back-to-back games to take a 2-1 series lead over the Denver Nuggets. Max, I know you've been high on the Clippers for a while. What's your take?
Well, I think Clippers are still, I think, the clear favorite to win the finals out of the teams in LA. And I think that's really interesting because I think LA is like overall just the Lakers team. They've had such great history there. I mean, going from Kobe and then 2 years later getting LeBron is, I mean, it's crazy. So, and LA always loves the big stars, and LeBron's arguably one of the best of all time, or the best of all time. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see how the fans will react to a Clippers team being actually really great and potentially winning the finals. But I think just solely off of the consistency of Kawhi Leonard and their bench, I think they're going to be favorites in the NBA.
I think it's very, very interesting that after 9 years of Los Angeles basketball being just subpar, we now have arguably the number 1 and number 2 team in the NBA in the same city. I mean, it's the Battle of LA. It's been the main headline of the NBA season all season long. Anthony Davis and LeBron versus Paul George and Kawhi, and I think it's going to be a really cool series if it happens, because we have two new Kawhi and Paul George. That duo is in their first year together. Anthony Davis and LeBron James in their first year together. Kawhi Leonard has a lot of playoff experience. LeBron James has a lot of playoff experience. Anthony Davis doesn't. Paul George hasn't had much in the last few years for playoff experience. It's going to be a genuine 7-game series if that happens, and it's going to be super fun basketball to watch.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question. Do you think they're even going to meet, or do you think that another team's going to be able to take them down? Or?
So the Houston Rockets, I think, are the weirdest team of all time in the NBA right now, with no true big man, and somehow their box-out method is just working incredibly well against these really good teams, like the Lakers in Game 1. The Lakers had 5 days off, the Rockets had 1 day off, and they came out and just put on a show against them. But LeBron James is LeBron James. He's clutch. He's a lockdown defender, and he hits big shots when he needs to hit them. Anthony Davis has just been playing out of his mind for having only 2 playoff series in his whole entire career, which the Pelicans lost both times. I mean, but the thing for Anthony Davis is he can play the first 43 minutes of the game incredibly. He's got to write his own story for the last 5 minutes, because that's where he needs to make his name for himself as the clutch big man that wins the series. He needs to take that step, that elevation up to the next level.
Yeah, and I don't really know if he'll be able to do that. I think
genuinely
he's been playing a lot better than LeBron in the past few weeks, really. And I don't know if he'll be able to, when the pressure's on him, I don't know if he's going to be that guy. And I think Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, Finals MVP, 2 different teams. I think he's just that proven guy. Paul George is now playing a little bit better. And I just think the Clippers just, like I said earlier, they just have an insane amount of depth, where I think the Lakers really lack. Like, the Lakers need those 2 stars to be playing great, where the Clippers could just have one and I think still win. But this whole NBA season has been really weird, because I don't think, at least in the bubble, there has been a great team that's still in the playoffs.
I mean, the whole NBA, I don't know how I feel about the bubble. It's just like the Suns were clearly the best team at the start of the bubble, and then they didn't make the playoffs, but I mean, credit to the NBA, because they handled the pandemic arguably the best of any league, and they've had no positive cases, and here we are weeks away from the season being over with a champion crowned and it working out with no flaws. So credit to Adam Silver for creating that bubble. Absolutely. For that. But also, going back to the Los Angeles, both LA teams actually have a surprisingly good amount of veterans on the team. Lou Williams, J.R. Smith, JaVale McGee, Joakim Noah, which a lot of teams lack that veteran experience going into the playoffs. So I think both of them, with the veteran experience and the promising young players that they have, and Lakers Caruso, Montrezl Harrell on the Clippers, obviously, I think it's genuinely is going to be a 7-game series, and it's going to be one of the greatest series of all NBA history if they can overcome the Rockets and the Nuggets to get to that Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, it'll be great. I'm excited to see it. I think it'll be really interesting if the Clippers would lose that game to LA, or the Lakers are still better. would the Clippers fans just forever just would they just forever be
I
mad
mean,
at their team?
I think that is also the key thing right now is there are so many fans in LA that are prepared to make the jump to the Clippers or go back to the LA, and that could decide LA's team for the future this one series.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Clippers have been not below average for the last 20 plus years.
Yep.
It's been a while.
My whole lifetime.
Yeah, you know, literally. And then the Lakers have been subpar for the last decade or so, since 2011. So I think this is the true test to see who gets the fans in LA and who becomes LA's team for the next decade.
Yeah, and that's a super important battle. I mean, you want I mean,
the biggest market in the NBA.
Exactly.
You are fighting for, and it is going to be a good series. Let's hope it gets there.
It'll be a lot of fun. Well, we are going to throw it over to Jacob. Thanks for joining us.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us. Remember to get unsided and start climbing up that leaderboard. For all of us here at Take a Side, I'm Jacob Polacheck, and we'll see you next week.